With Transport Fever 3 just around the corner, I thought it would be fun to look at some features that I hope will make it into the new game. Starting off with what I think would be a much easier and better way to handle truck variety. You can see I have a decent amount of variety in my trucks here, from body style to the liveries, but it took a lot of work to get all these variety in place. I do have some mods enabled that gives me a bunch of different varieties, but if you just look at the amount of clutter, I don't think anyone likes having your menus cluttered like this. And in vanilla, you only get one type of truck, I guess kind of two with the little mini ones, but essentially you're getting one of each kind with no color variety or anything like that. What I think would be easier here is something kind of similar to what we have for trains or modded trains already, where if you click on one, there's a little drop down menu here. Just imagine a little drop down, and then there's another kind of scroll bar here with a bunch of different liveries. But what's clutch here, and really what I think is key, is I really don't care too much on what livery the truck has. I spent a lot of time going through the vehicle manager and purposefully just randomizing each truck, which was very painstaking, very manual. So what if we go back to here and we have this little drop down menu thing like I'm talking about, but instead of selecting a certain color, instead of having to select each one individually, why can't there just be a random button? And then when the truck spawns in, has a random livery, and it just keeps that, and there it is. There you go. You could have infinite number of random liveries, really easy to install new ones, really easy to apply, and it would be so much easier. I think I spent a whole episode of my Island Hopper series, about an hour, which, by the way, this whole map is from that Island Hopper series. I had a whole episode dedicated just to getting variety on it, and if we had a just simple select random button, would have made it so much easier. Something else that seemed more difficult than it really needed to be was if I go over to my passenger station near my airport over here. Redesigning stations, particularly when you're in late game like this with a lot of vehicles like I think I have something like 1,500 vehicles, it gets very, very laggy. Say for instance, if we wanted to add a couple stations over here, in the beginning of the game, it's very easy to add buildings. It's almost instantaneous. But if I try to go place down a couple buildings here, not sure if this is coming across in the recording, but my computer is very unhappy right now, and this actually isn't even as bad as it was. I think it was taking a good like 4 to 5 seconds when I was redesigning this. Again, in the Island Hopper series, took about a full episode just to redesign this station from the early 1900s architecture to the more modern architecture that it is now. And what I think is going on here from my amateur level of game dev knowledge is that every time you bust one of the platforms here, the game tries to recalculate every single train, every single passenger route, all at once every time you redesign anything. To help alleviate this, again, not a professional game dev maker, but I am a hobbyist game dev maker. You can actually check out the game I made, by the way, if you want to support the channel, called Box Zombies. What I think would help to alleviate this is, instead of automatically recalculating every time you bust something, when you go into the configure menu, what if this was more of a blueprint menu? So say the station turns maybe a black and white, or even just a shade of blue to show a blueprint, and then you can make all the changes you want while in blueprint mode, but still have the station as it is as a physical object, so that nothing actually happens until you click some green check mark or something, or if you click an X and you can go backwards in case you don't like your redesign. But I think that would, one, help with the lag, and two, it would just help visualize what you want to do without having to stop the entire network. On my Island Hopper series, I did a challenge mode where I could not pause, so I redesigned the whole station about 45 minutes worth of time in actual play mode, and then I can't remember if the trains got backed up that bad, but regardless, what if there's a blueprint mode, no lag, you wouldn't have to worry about your transport network coming to a halt. I think it would be an easy win. Speaking of stations, I absolutely love the ability to configure them to whatever design I want. I do have some mods that add some overpasses here as opposed to just the underground passes like in vanilla, but these are only surface level stations. I also had to use mods for elevated stations like one I have over here, and I absolutely love elevated stations. It lets you do things like this, where I have this train right here on the the red line stopping at a station. But if I go into the line manager here, we can see that a whole separate train actually runs underneath the station, just like we're seeing here. That's actually really good timing, and this is something that's not possible in vanilla. And not only elevated stations, but actually the opposite of that, I also had to use mods to get underground station, aka metros or subways, and like you can see here, I have one metro right here, which is a little bit difficult to see, but if we zoom in on one of the trains, we can see that indeed there are people waiting at our underground metro, and these are really cool because they save space. If we go to the line manager, or maybe I can select just this one, we can see that it does indeed run underneath a lot of the city, including some railway stations, and it's just cool to be able to use metros. This mod in particular is the best one that I found, but it is just a gigantic, not configurable that much station, and I really hope that they bring in both elevated and underground stations that are fully configurable like their surface level counterparts are. My last wishlist item is something that I think, if done correctly, would have huge positive impacts for both the player base and for the developers, and that has to do with themes on your playthrough. I'm not sure if you guys have noticed in this video, but I have not themed this playthrough. I just went through the workshop and basically just picked every vehicle I thought looked cool and threw them together on the same map. But for a second, let's just go over into the Steam workshop. So we're in the Steam workshop, I'm browsing on mods, and say I want to do a themed playthrough. All I have to do is type in the country or region in question, and then you get a bunch of options here. And this is great, I'm really glad they had this feature, but they are not all of the same quality, and it's just hard to select these when you're in the game as well. You have to enable, I have over 100, I think 150 mods on my Island Hopper playthrough. It wasn't the easiest to add in all those mods, and again, not all of them have the same quality. Some of them are of questionable quality, and some of them make the game crash. So with mods, there's always an uncertainty with what you get. Now let's look for a second at the DLCs offered, and you may see where I'm going with this, but the DLCs that are currently offered are, they're cool, but they're just basically a couple vehicles that can be easily modded into the game. They're not really that crazy. The only reason I would get them is to support the developers, which is very noble, but check this out. What if instead of offering just a random hodgepodge of vehicles, what if every 6 months to a year they released themed DLCs? One DLC could be British, the next DLC could be Japanese, the next one German. The list is endless. Not only would this be a win for players because we're getting high quality assets made by the developers that will work in the game, but it'd also be a win for the developers because they get a consistent and reliable cash flow for potentially years to come. And not only this, but it would be so much easier to select the vehicles you want on, because instead of over 100 mods, you just have a British theme you can turn on and off, you can have a German theme that you can turn on and off, you could have an American theme you can turn on and off, and it would be so much easier. Right now we kind of have European, American, and Asian. Just expand this with DLCs. Again, I'm certain I would absolutely pay for high quality themed assets. I'm certain other people will too. I really think this would be a good way to help sustain the game for, again, months and potentially even years. If you guys have any other burning ideas, leave them in the comments below, and maybe, just maybe, we could get a developer from Urban Games to watch this video. How cool would that be? If you guys don't have any other ideas, I have about a dozen quality of life improvements that I also want to go over, but this video is too long, so go check out those quality of life upgrades here. But other than that, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.